Because in between so much chaos and confusion, it is a need to spread love, compassion, education and acceptance. Along so much ignorance, humans unconsciously did not even understand the simplicity of life. Let's start by stating the following cognition. God, the existence, do not oppose itself between the same opposites of the opposites created by part of creation itself. Considering the fact that this is a very serious and delicate topic, I will inform you carefully based on integrated facts about the cosmic existence, rather than just a non-cognized scripture. In fact, during several centuries and millennials ago, dated since the Alpha and Omega were there, the cosmic life has been present everywhere, beyond imagination in diverse forms. We can notice multiple life forms, starting from the most common to the most rare, in which such a cases we might even still ignore. Why do people claim such a false right to condemn the existential diversity we have been provided with? From false fears about separating families to manipulated foods and mischievous tactics between senseless claims quoting reproductive wars against countries, or even beyond evil or good. The fact of existential and sexual diversity in expression is a heavy red tag in the public opinion, just because humanity is still unconscious of the nature of existing by deep cognition. Let us then make clear views about this cosmic truth. Men and women by default are gonna be there and there and there. It is unnecessary stating defensive positions, because in the same way that people's lives and sexual expressions are going to be there, as always, they have been happening since several centuries ago, because if you did not know, contrary to false ignorant claims, sexuality is not a tendency, but if you fear that it is, CBT is a good choice. Undoubtedly it is a natural way and part of creation that is not new, but very ancient, and it is found beyond just humans, in diverse species of sentient beings. Do yourself a research. The only thing that went out after this was generating discrimination, denial, separation, prejudice, violence, brutality, and negativity, murder, suicide and hypocrisy, fear and lack of integrity, a rotten negative society that screams for a need to step up and build the successful millennial civilizations in which the majority understood the meaning of creation and respect. From this principle, I want to go deeper, and quote someone else's perspective upon this topic, starting with Swami Tadadmanada's words. Religious Scriptures and LGBTQ, a Scriptural Perspective. Hindu scriptures neither condemn nor condone same-sex relationships and gender nonconformity, because the ancient sages considered these to be natural parts of God's creation. In the USA, India, and around the world, people who are gay, lesbian, transgender or who failed to conform to gender norms are subject to fierce condemnation and widespread discrimination. They are often portrayed as being deviant, perverted or sinful. These vehement sentiments are supported by passages found in the main scriptures of Christianity, Judaism and Islam. The Old Testament of the Bible says, "Diaresis, if a man lies with a man as with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination." Diaresis. In the New Testament the Apostle Paul says, "Diaresis God delivered over to disgraceful passions, and he decries the men and women who lust after those of their own sex." Diaresis. In the Quran the prophet Lot rebukes the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, saying, Diaresis, do you commit abominations such as no people in creation has ever committed before? You practice your lust on men in preference to women. You are indeed people transgressing beyond bounds. Diaresis. Hinduism is based in the four Vedas: Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda. Nowhere in those ancient scriptures do we find any explicit references to LGBTQ. The Vedas neither condemn nor condone sexual diversity, same-sex relationships. But later scriptures, especially the Dharma Shastras, do indeed consider this matter. The Dharma Shastras are collections of religious rules and principles compiled by those holy sages. The best known of them is the Manava Dharma Shastra or Manu Smriti, that's about 2000 years old. It says, "A twice-born man who commits an unnatural offense with a male, or has intercourse with a female in a cart drawn by oxen, in water, or in the daytime, shall bathe, dressed in his clothes." Twice-born man refers to members of the Brahmana, Kshatriya and Vaishya castes. This passage prescribes taking a ritual bath for the sake of religious purity after engaging in certain kinds of sexual activity. It does not actually condemn sex between same-sex individuals. Yatu kanyam prakriyat stri sa sadio mandamarhati. Angulyorava va chetam karanodvahanam tatha. Yatu kanyam prakriyat stri sa sadio mandamarhati. Angulyorava va chetam karanodvahanam tatha. 370. If a woman destroys the virginity of a maiden, she deserves immediate shaving off, or the amputation of 2 fingers, and also being carried by a donkey. This is a more severe penalty, but the offense here is not having sex between same-sex individuals but rather corrupting the young girl virginity and thus making her less desirable for marriage. The Manu Smriti prescribes a similar penalty for men who rob a girl of her virginity. Like the prior passage, this statement doesn't actually condemn same-sex intercourse and relationships. Instead, it prohibits sexual activities that cause harm to someone. As you may know, in Hinduism, the main principle of righteousness or dharma is ahimsa, harmlessness. Any sexual activity, whether it is heterosexuals or homosexuals, is considered adharmic or sinful if it causes harm to anyone. Based on all of this, we can conclude that the main scriptures of Hinduism do not condemn sexual diversity LGBTQ, nor do they condone it. Instead, they seem to take a neutral position. To understand why, consider how the Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures place great emphasis on spiritual values like tolerance, equanimity, and graceful acceptance of things that cannot be changed. The Gita famously says, Samatvam yoga usayat, yoga is equanimity. Properly understood, equanimity is to refrain from judging all the people, things and events in life, to be either good or bad. These two words are problematic, because what is good for you might be bad for someone else, and vice versa. Good simply means what you like, and bad means what you do not like. In Sanskrit, these two notions are called raga and dvesha, attraction and aversion, or more simply likes and dislikes. Raga and dvesha compel you to chase after whatever you think is good, and to run away from whatever you think it's bad. These two urges keep your attention firmly fixed on worldly matters and prevent you gaining a higher spiritual perspective. Raga and Devesha could be huge obstacles to spiritual growth. To overcome them, you have to drop your habitual judgments of good and bad, you have to develop equanimity. You need an impartial, unbiased and completely objective view of existence. Let me explain. Red hair and freckles are neither good or bad, they are neither desirable or undesirable, they just are, they are natural. Even though red hair and freckles are not too common, they happen to be part of the world in which we live, part of God's creation. You have equanimity towards red hair and freckles because you understand that they are natural parts of God's creation. This very perspective is the basis towards having equanimity towards people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer. Like red hair and freckles, LGBTQ are also natural parts of God's creation. Then to judge such a people as behind, undesirable and defective in any way is absolutely incorrect. Judgments like these are based purely on personal and collective bias. Now, many people reject the view that being LGBTQ is a natural part of God's creation. They consider being male and female sex roles to be categorically separate and rigidly fixed. They maintain that same-sex relationships and gender non-conformity are unnatural. They are aberrations, opposed to nature, willfully chosen by people who are misguided or perverse. But scientists have come to the opposite conclusion. Studies in botany, zoology, and medical science all show that nature has unfixed boundaries between individuals. No rigid separations of gender, instead nature is rich in complexity, it teems with diversity, including gender diversity. For example, many plants along with some kind of fish and reptiles are hermaphroditical, that is, they have both male and female reproductive organs. They are not exclusively male or female. Also, homosexual behavior is exhibited by many kinds of animals, including birds, sheep, elephants, and perhaps most significantly bonobo apes that are genetically similar to us. Among humans, 1 in 1,500 babies is born with some kind of intersex condition, in which their anatomy is not typically male, not it is typically female. In some cases babies are born with both male and female sex organs. So, nature's great diversity blurs the distinction between male and female more frequently than you might think. Today as many as 5% of people in the USA identify themselves as being homosexual. 1 in 200 people identify as being transgender. All mainstream and medical and health organizations have ceased to consider being LGBTQ as psychological disorders. Most of them now say that sexual orientation and gender identity is innate, it is something we are born with, something that cannot be changed, and it is not a matter of choice, as some people claim. According to science, we are born either male or female because of genetics, because of the X and Y chromosomes we inherit from our parents. Recent medical research has found that genetics also has a role in determining a person's sexual orientation and gender identity. Though no particular gene seems to be involved. According to the doctrine of karma, we are born male or female, because of prarabdha of karma, the results of actions committed in past lives, and it's possible that prarabdha karma also determines one's sexual orientation and gender identity. However you choose to look at it, All of this diversity is natural, it is part of God's creation. The rishis, the sages of ancient India, didn't have access to the scientific evidence we discussed earlier, but apparently, they understood intuitively that being LGBTQ is natural, part of God's creation. The Manusmriti describes the biological process that determines a baby's sex like this. The Sanskrit word used here, puman, literally means non-male, and it describes one who is neither male nor female. The word napumsaka neuter is much more common and has exactly the same meaning. So, according to the rishis, human beings are three sexes: male, female, and napumsaka. Third gender, tritiya prakrita. This is an umbrella term that includes all unconventional sexual orientations and gender identities, as well as intersex conditions. The scriptures composed in ancient India all assumed this threefold view of gender. For this reason, it is not surprising to find in those scriptures many examples of gender diversity. For example, several Puranic scriptures portray Lord Shiva as Ardhanarishvara, a bigendered deity whose right half is Lord Shiva and whose left half is goddess Parvati. This divine form unites the male principle, Purusha, with the female principle, Prakriti. Ardhanarishvara is worshipped in most temples dedicated to Lord Shiva. The Bhagavatam Purana tell a famous history of Lord Vishnu assuming the alluring form of Mohini and many more stories. We own a part in understanding the terrible consequences of clinging to outdated and misguided views. To accept those who are LGBTQ does not, in any way whatsoever, condone promiscuous or otherwise harmful sexual behavior. Such a behavior is adharmic. But it is also adharmic to ridicule or condemn those who fail to fit in a social standard of certain social norms. To understand the nature's great diversity, and to recognize Hinduism's acceptance of that diversity, can remove the stigma that causes so much suffering and help us all live in harmony. Swami Tadatmananda. From this conscious wider perspective, we can conclude that indeed, sexuality in all its forms is a basic natural part of existent creation as it happens to be. Although it has a purpose based in reproductive and expansion function, it also involves part of a pleasurable, communicative and effective relationship between sentient beings in most life species. But let's go beyond, understanding that the deeper we search, it is better to cognize more facts in what LGBTQ is about. However, there is to remember that homosexual behavior is presented even between animals and beyond known species, which also have a lower and higher conscious layer than humans, recalling the concept that, even cognizing this consequence of choice, the natural causality of sexual diversity is totally part of God's creation, also understood as an existential creation. By now, I will address a cosmic input regarding becoming what you desire as a transgender approach. Why transgenderism is a path to completion. Beginning from the point that people who experience gender dysphoria present symptoms of anxiety and fail to conform with their body and identity, it should be taken to consideration that an incompletion is clearly present in their lives, and opportunities to achieve and complete with their life experience should be given in order to maintain a healthy contributing society that thrives forward. I want to recall some public opinions that claimed that even if a transgender individual went through a physical process of transformation to embody the form and shape of their desired gender, they would still use their birth-given pronouns due to their legitimacy in regards to their personal opinion and the fact of their genetical gender as the excuse to it. Those witless approaches repeated that, even if someone were to go through all those medical procedures altering their appearance, still, they should be called the same gender because their genetics were born like that. It is like saying you have to be calling someone a leporine-lipped even after surgery because it pleases your senselessness. Let's say that someone has a genetic condition, basically an unconventional genetic particularity, but that one could have surgery and medical procedures to fix that. Why would you need to stay that way, when there are solutions? Is not that senselessness? Same way, why would someone who was born with a genetic particularity of intersexuality be unable to have surgery for the preferred sex alignment if desired, more than just be called an intersexual against its will? Always because it was, naturally, born that way. In the same way it should be allowed to identify and live as an intersexual person by their own will. It does not matter whether the person wants to stay intersexual or not, it should be allowed normal regular access to any desired procedure that facilitates the alignment and integrity with their personality, and in that way attaining a stable mood that can allow anyone to keep contributing to society regularly. Same thing for any gender or any genetic particularity. Being man or woman, or anything else is beyond an appearance or physical gender an essentiality of existing. Certainly, I want to clarify that by this day, in what we scientifically have available at public reach, factually, it's just a physical modification, but I could claim that it is improper to disesteem the possibility of improving or achieving it, and at some point we would be providing a genetic modification. Why? Because years ago, when we could not fly by using planes or even use a cell phone, why would they have turned down the possibility that today we have the chance to take advantage of? Therefore, by basic understanding there is to clarify that using the proper pronoun chosen by the transgender individual is a matter of respect when the process is authentic, not a matter of factual genetics. Basic, are you respectful? Then, use their chosen pronouns, or you an uneducated disrespectful. Call them what you want. The topic of pronouns must be taken with detail and care because people's identity is fundamental in the societal development. Another ridicules concepts have been expressed such as comparing a gender transformation to a total species or object transformation. It is a senseless insight, comparing a person who believes and desires to be a president from being just a student, to a woman, man or person, desiring to be a snake and looking to transform into that, because it believes to be one, or similar comparisons, are just a sign of baseless prejudice. Still, from the point of respecting people's existence and considering their completion process, I will attempt to address this, in a cosmic conscious way. I saw some online claims stating this sentence. A person is what it believes to be. There is a difference between looking like and dressing like, than really being that with integrity. In reality, a person is what that person really is, but the person can become literally what it believes to be in the fastest speed of its conscious attainment at that moment. If you believe to be a superhero, and dress like a superhero, but you are a wannabe, it will take the conscious attainment to be authentically that. If the person is sick, but believes positively be well, the process will take the time required, regarding the conscious level attained. If one person believes to be a cute bird, it is not going to be a cute bird just like that. It requires a depth in conscious attainment. Even if you don't understand what I said, let me resume, it is not that easy. If the person is a man biologically and it believes and feels to be a beautiful lady, certainly the belief is important, but it would take also a level of physical and psychological transformation process based on conscious attainment and genes. Some comparisons are very ridiculous. If you are poor but desire to be rich, it does not make you rich just like that. The belief will make you start the journey towards being that, in regards the cognition you have, until you attain the real conscious cognition you desired by conscious attainment process. It also depends on the goal to achieve regarding becoming or being. If the person believes to be a hunky muscled one, the beginning is the belief, but in beyond the belief, there is the conscious attainment, determination and perpetuation. What is certain is, the existence, the cosmos is lovingly all open to possibilities for everyone in multiple ways as long as they count with them, and leave behind human senselessness and limitations, to see beyond countless wonders. Thankful for that. When you see most animals, you can notice that between male and female, their bodies are almost similar, with differences in their genitals and breasts, sometimes the size of their body. All of this, due to their hormonal production derived from their genes and organs, and sometimes because of their species it happens to be totally different from usual. Similarly, men, women and intersexual people have those differences as well, but there is to clarify that certain features are just stereotypes that humans created, and they carried particular perceptions in their minds or cultural habits about what is or what is not. One example is the long hair. A lot of people relate long hair to women, but man also can have long hair and it does not change the factor being masculine. From faulty or righty stereotypes man created, were created some tendencies and approaches that sometimes appear to be just obtuse. Also, there is to see that the nature of the psychological identify and personality of an individual who owns a body, should left in free consideration whether to match or not the physical birth gender. It means that, it should be allowed to individuals to align with the integrity of their self-expression as it happens to be. We have seen numerous personalities around the history of the world identifying themselves as part of LGBTQ, from worldwide royalty, presidents, artists, journalists, teachers, priests, universal beauty pageants, etc. to the closest neighbor or relative, and also mentioning that the Pope also stated proof of love to the people regardless of their sexuality as a non-judgmental statement. That abuse became a harmful deed to themselves as well as others around. Avoiding this, it has been told against certain doings, procuring to control anything that can result to be abusive, harmful, excessive, unnecessary and misused. But most people never understood or misunderstood natural existence and intentions behind actions. Discern. Well, these are some deeper ideas and guidance regarding this LGBT topic, and stay updated for the next news about this topic. Paul.